my dad didn't drink much, but one thing I learned, and this hit me when I was in AA, they said, they told me about a dry drunk, and a dry drunk is somebody that doesn't drink, but like they, especially if they've had a dad that's an alcoholic, they're still, as a kid, learning all their emotions from their dad and how to act from their dad. And a lot of sons of alcoholics or kids of alcoholics learn alcoholic emotions. And so my dad had a lot of alcoholic emotions, a lot of anger, a lot of screaming, a lot of violence, a lot of slamming doors. Yeah, it just very up and down. He's very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde when I was a little kid.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Mediocre Dads podcast, where being mediocre is a choice. You have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. Goodness, I messed that up, and it's almost like I haven't been practicing, but I do practice. I promise. So we're gonna dive right into this episode, guys, because I have a special guest. His name's Michael, and we were chit chatting beforehand, and we've been chit chatting for last, I think, a week now. And I was telling him, I was like, "Hey, I'm really excited about this episode because I could just tell he has a lot of experiences, and they're not all positive experiences, but they're lessons that I would say that he learned from, but they're things he can share that with you and I, me, and then you, the audience, that I think a lot of you guys will get value from, right? We're not here to get value out of people's pain, but I think what it is I was just telling him that I think a lot of times, especially men, what we do is we'll go through something and we'll think that we're like the first or the only ones to be going through this situation or this thing. And so we won't share it with others because it's like, oh, well, they won't understand because they weren't impacted by this, or they didn't have this growing up, and whatever the case might be, right? And then come to find out, you're like, they're we're more human than you're surprised. Like I'll give you a perfect example. My best friend, I won't tell you what it is, but he had an affliction of sorts that he opened up to me about, and I was like, I didn't even know that. Like that was a thing that I never thought of happening to him, but he opened up to me about it. We talked several different times, and it meant a lot to me because it realized I was able to humanize him, if you will, make realize like he's not this person that just has this great life, and what he does, but I was able to humanize him. Anyway, that being said, let's get into it. So Michael, you were telling me about your life, man, and I think let's start. I want to start in the beginning. Okay, so you were telling me kind of about your dad and growing up with that. So can you start there for us?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for having me, Queon. You're actually not the
Absolutely.
first Queon I've met. I've actually played soccer with a Queon before. So,
Really, that's freaking
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. So I grew up in Northern California, Redding, and I really grew up in a small town outside of that. We have about 5,000 people. Redding's about 100,000. And very conservative, very just small town, man. And yeah, I grew up with my parents my mom's from all over, Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, and then my dad's from San Francisco Bay Area. His dad was a Marine. Um,
Wow, nice.
yeah, and unfortunately, his dad was also an alcoholic, and he was an abusive alcoholic and very up and down emotions and very violent. And my dad didn't drink much, but one thing I learned, and this hit me when I was in AA, they said, they told me about a dry drunk, and a dry drunk is somebody that doesn't drink, but like they, especially if they've had a dad that's an alcoholic, they're still, as a kid, learning all their emotions from their dad and how to act from their dad. And a lot of sons of alcoholics or kids of alcoholics learn alcoholic emotions. And so my dad had a lot of alcoholic emotions, a lot of anger, a lot of screaming, a lot of violence, a lot of slamming doors. Yeah, it just very up and down. Very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde when I was a little kid. And
Yeah.
I think that that really affected me quite a bit now that I look back at it. But then things got better. We got, my parents had businesses, small business. They had a video rental store and a restaurant, which was looking back pretty cool jobs for your parents to have, but I definitely
Yeah.
took it for granted. Um, and then things got better, eighth grade through high school, things were pretty great actually. We had a nice house. Um, my parents were gone a lot because they're at trade shows and vacation and stuff. They would just leave a lot. And I have two older sisters that are 2 years and 4 years older. And I started drinking at a pretty young age, like 14, 15, because my older sisters were in high school and getting out of high school, and I was just getting into high school. And we drank pretty hard. I was drinking vodka mostly, like I never was a beer guy. It was always hard alcohol. And my parents were gone all the time. They were always away. So my house definitely was a party house. And I got, I've skipped a lot, but yeah, I guess. Do you want me to go into depth about like the childhood stuff, or like I
No,
guess
you don't. Well, you
I
don't
don't
have to if you don't
mind.
want to. But
Oh, I don't care either way.
because I wanted to ask though. You mentioned so you started drinking at a young age, and so did did anyone in your family, like your sisters, were they aware that you were drinking, or your parents were they aware that you were drinking, or was
Yeah,
this kind of like a hey hush hush I'm drinking thing?
no, it was pretty much allowed. Yeah, it
Oh,
was.
okay,
It was as long as I mean, I wasn't doing it when they were there, but there I was gone. But they always knew I had parties. Like it wasn't something I was hiding. I just
yeah.
had to make sure it was cleaned up.
Do you think they thought it was a phase of like, hey, this is just what young kids do?
Definitely.
Like
Yeah,
they're gonna
definitely.
he's gonna get through it, and then he'll go to college or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's what they thought it was. And it's not like they ever saw it. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like by the time they got home, everything was cleaned. They just knew I had a party, but they didn't. It just wasn't even like it just seemed so normal. Like I just never
yeah,
thought it wasn't normal. I didn't know anybody that didn't drink really. Nobody I hung out with didn't. I just I look back and I go, oh yeah, that wasn't like the amount we were drinking, and it's not like everybody was drinking that. It was just me and my core friends, and then we had this big party around us. But a lot of people left, or
yeah.
like we could always stay there, so we could just get as much as we wanted.
Yeah, that's crazy because I didn't high school, so like I didn't drink in high school, even though again that was what was the normal thing. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
were, you get high school, you go to high school parties, and someone has alcohol or whatever, and we're all drinking whatever. I didn't take a sip in high school, and it's the craziest thing. Most people don't believe me when I tell them this, but I didn't take my first sip of alcohol until I was 21.
wow,
And I didn't do that because I had always thought when you drink, you get drunk right off your first sip. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh no no no, I'm not
hilarious.
doing that. I think right, yeah, and so it's funny because it's like that. Just you could tell how much of a kid I was, but at the same time, it benefited my parents because I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I just was like, yeah, man, I'll DD, but I won't participate because I'm not trying to get to what that looks like,
Yeah,
or what I perceived what would happen with that. So I didn't really get into it until I was 21. But so you did also say something about a dry, you said a dry drunk,
yeah,
um, and so. And I know you said it impacted you, your dad being it impacted you in when you were growing up. Did you notice that? Would you say you noticed some of the tendencies of what you learning later on, learning what the title actually was, a dry drunk, or did you just think like this is just what dads do?
yeah. I think when you're a kid, all you know, like I don't know anything about alcoholism as a kid. I don't
Hmm.
know. I just think that's my dad. Like I don't
Yeah,
understand it all what is happening. It wasn't until I'm way older and look back and go through it myself that I realized what was happening. And my dad was just different than me. Like he just grew up a lot harder than I did. That's the thing is like I didn't grow up harder than he did. I grew up easier than he did. So
yeah,
as bad as it was for me, it was even worse for him.
yeah,
And he just had like weird thing. Like he just wasn't. I don't know how to explain it. He's a good guy, like in his heart, he wanted to do the good thing. I think he just had a lot of demons and a lot of inability to control his emotions, and he just was not aware what he was doing, you know, like, and like just little things like slamming the door all the time, and then and like that became a thing where as soon as I heard him come home, whether I wanted to or not, I got up and ran no matter where I was, and was like panicked. And so it's like you develop later. I learned it's called complex PTSD. You know, it's just it happens so much, and you just develop this reaction. So like for 20, I mean 30 years, I couldn't. If I hear a door slam, I'm instantly in panic mode, like fight or flight mode. You know, it wasn't until I did like EMDR and like a lot of therapy that that went away. But I didn't know
Do
what
you
that
like?
was. What's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
like EMDR? I'm
I
not. I
love
don't
it.
know if I don't know if I'm a fan. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm in it right now. I'm in it right now.
Nice.
For PTSD, but I don't know if I'm a fan. Too much of it. So when you
Well,
said it, I was like, oh man, look, as someone who's done it. Let me ask
yeah,
how they enjoy it? Because me, I'm like. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not completely sold.
yeah.
So
Well, I will say it doesn't. It's not a cure all, but I will say. I mean, I don't know how many sessions you did. I didn't do too terribly many, but it really helped me take the emotion out of specifically one thing that I can't really mention on this channel that
oh, you're
happened,
good.
but it just took a lot of the emotion out of the trauma, where I could now
Yeah.
look at it with like it wasn't in my head every day anymore.
Yeah,
Because
got you.
I'd be
No, yeah.
sitting there replaying things from my childhood while I was washing the dishes, and I was just doing the 1,000 yard stare, and I would just be doing what I'm doing, but I'm really thinking about like reliving these things over and over and over, and I don't even. It's not even like I'm consciously doing it. It was just autopilot. I didn't even
Yeah.
know it was weird until I was in therapy and like had been to like like my life is falling apart and I'm in a mental institution and like
Yeah.
gone to
Man.
rehab, and then they're like, "Yeah, dude, that's not normal." I'm like, "Oh, I thought those were my thoughts, you know."
Yeah.
And then once I did EMDR and I got some relief from that, and then I just had so much more like brain power because
Yeah.
I wasn't constantly 25% distracted by these thoughts.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I get it. Like don't get me wrong. Like there are things that I definitely have been able to uh better rationalize versus before, and so it's definitely helped. But like I said, like I'll do it every session, and I'll be like, oh my goodness, I don't know how like and it's almost one of those things. It's for me. It's sometimes I can feel like this dreaded feeling is like I'm not looking forward to this.
yeah,
So, but don't get me wrong. It does have its place and it can be effective.
yeah,
And in a lot of different regards. So I was just curious. Sorry, total tangent. You said it, and I was like, let me ask him this question.
yeah, dude. I haven't met many people that have done it.
um, so you this life is happening, right?
Yeah.
And then you grow up, you kind of grow up, and I imagine you leave the house. What happens after that, right? Like, is life normal, if you will, for you, or are you already down this what would most consider a spiral?
Looking back, I was spiraling, but at the
Okay.
time I didn't know it. And I just didn't know what was happening. I thought I was just really depressed and really anxious all the time. And now I look back and I go, oh, I was probably in withdrawal like all the time because I was
Yeah.
drinking so much. But I would binge drink. So I'd drink like Friday, Saturday, or if we had maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then like hungover, and then, but I feel better. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize you're still withdrawing. Like even when I was like really addicted, I could still feel better, but then you go through withdrawal. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not withdrawal. That's just getting over the hangover. Then there's this
Yeah.
other phase that happens a few days later,
Yeah.
you know. And
No,
so I think
I
I
got
was in
you. Yeah.
withdrawal probably for, I mean, from 16 to like, forever. Like I think I
Dang.
was always in withdrawal. And so that made college really hard. And my
Yeah.
parents, they got divorced after 30 years of marriage, so I felt that pressure in the house, and There's nothing in college to this day that I would want to. I got good grades, and it was always like important that I go to college. But to this day, there's nothing. I mean, I don't want to go. I don't want to do any of these jobs that college has. I want to be a pro skateboarder, or a artist, or a fighter. Like I want to
Yeah.
do expression. You know,
Yeah.
I
Create things.
create. Yeah, and coming from like conservative parents and conservative background, that just wasn't really an option. And then I didn't have any kind of God. Like we never really, my dad went to Catholic school and had a bad experience, I think. And so he just went to church like a few times when I was a kid, and that was it. Never talked about it, never mentioned it. So
Oh wow.
looking back now that I'm more spiritual, it's like, oh yeah, I was completely alone and trying to do it all on my own. And I was just lost in the woods. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. So, like, was your mom? Did she have have God or in her life, or was it just no one? It was just kind of like, hey, like, and this is not a jab at you and your family by any means, but was it more of like, hey, Easter and maybe Christmas, we're gonna go to the church and do what we're supposed to?
it was mainly that, and then it wasn't even that. My mom always has had God, but she just never really shared it.
Mhm.
Both my parents, I think, had really bad experiences with religion, and you know how it is. Like some people, the devil knows scripture too,
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
and not everybody that goes to church is a godly person.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think a lot of people forget that the people at church are going to church. They're still sinners,
Yeah.
and they're imperfect people trying to become perfection or perfect people, which is impossible for us. But it's funny because you'll have this set of people, different people who will be going to church for 5+ years, and they'll be like, oh, I'm spiritual, I know some verses, so I'm more spiritual mature than you are, and I know these things, and it just comes off pompous and just like, hey, I'm holier than thou. And it pushes a lot of people away. I've talked about this before, and one of the hard things with the difficult things with Christianity, and specifically, is that people, we forget that we were people who were once seeking to be saved, and what it felt like to be the people wanting to be saved, and to hear someone else be able to speak with such bravado and confidence about the power of Jesus and the power of that he has to save our life and save our souls and save our spirits, right? And so people tend to forget that, and it turns into this talking down to you almost, and you're like, well, you don't know God like I know God. And it's like, well, okay, hold on. All right, I didn't know this is like a competition per se of who knows what God. I want to come to church. I want to feel his presence and know that God is working in my life. And I think that's brought a lot of times, that's what has pushed people a lot away. Now there's other things that have happened that we will not get into in the church, that is very shameful, but I think that's a big part of it today, of why people are don't go to church. But for you, did you find God? Have you found God, or is God a part of your life? Like, what is that? Where are you at with that?
Yeah. So just kind of finishing off on that, my mom's mom was very religious, but I,
Okay.
I think, if you're too much like I think God wants us to be happy. Like I think he
Hmm.
wants us to experience and be artistic and be creative. But some people get caught in what you shouldn't do and focus on that a lot and focus on what's sin and what's this and that, and becomes very judgmental, and it becomes like a prison. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what my mom experienced. My guess, I don't know. So I think they both had or you know complicated experiences, and they didn't want that to push that on us. So I think that's
Yeah.
probably why we never really. And I don't know that they really knew like the explanations of like, because the things you hear, if you're not it's not explained to you, can be kind of like, it's tough. Like, um but yeah, I so eventually, you know I, I don't know what happened. I got addicted to painkillers. I had a lot of back pain. I went to a doctor, got painkillers, and found they got rid of all my anxiety, and they got rid of all my depression, and they got rid of all my worries and all everything, man. It just melted away, and I could sit in quiet for and feel good. And then I realized my dad had tons of bottles of these painkillers because he had back problems and he never took them. And so I just remember I emptied them all into a bag and I just sat in my room for like months watching movies.
What?
And
Wow.
I didn't know that I was addicted until I tried to stop, like until I ran out. I didn't realize what addiction was. I didn't realize I couldn't stop.
How old were you when you did that?
I don't know. It's hard because I've had so many crazy things happen, but I think around like 18.
Mm,
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
okay.
It's those a lot of years are blurred together, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and that really got out of control fast. And um, trying to balance like going to college, I ended up going to multiple colleges. I've been to like 6 colleges at least. Just bouncing around, never finishing. Got an associate's, but never finished a bachelor's. And just every time I just fell further and further behind, and just developed more and more addictions and depression. And it kind of culminated in, there's a lot. I mean, I could talk for hours about like the details, but it culminated in me going basically having a nervous breakdown and going um, to to a mental hospital, basically. And Yeah, I went to rehabs and mental hospitals on and off quite a few times. They kind of all blur together because my
Yeah.
brain was so messed up. And I OD'd one time. I OD'd a couple times, but I OD'd one time where I had a seizure, and I was at Chico State, and I was actually in a classroom, and I had taken a handful of pills before I went into class, and it was like I think it was like the second day or something. So we were like
Mm,
still learning everything and like everybody's name and stuff. And I just remember the projector, like they dimmed the lights, put the projector on, and then I felt like I was dreaming, and I could just hear people talking like, he just fell over, and like I don't know who he is or what. And I just hear all these voices, but I wasn't waking up. It was so weird because I was
yeah.
dreaming, but I wasn't waking up. And then I started opening my eyes, and I was dreaming and all these people around me, but I wasn't waking up. It was so weird. And then I kept just asking, like, what happened? And then EMTs and stuff were there, and they would tell me what happened. And then I go, okay. And then I'd sit there and I go, what happened? And I just keep repeating that. I keep asking them what happened over and over, and they keep telling me, and I couldn't remember. It was so weird.
Yeah.
And and then I just remember being like lifted up on a board, and then I just remember waking up in the hospital, and like where I actually was like here. And I was just like, how did I get here? And like I just thought I had a dream. And yeah, apparently I had a seizure in the classroom. And just a lot of things like that, that just really got scary, pretty crazy.
I mean, that's a scary moment, right? Not only for the individual yourself having the seizure and experiencing that, but then also the people around you, and then your family who has to, hearing like, hey, brother's in the hospital. Were your siblings, did they have issues? In You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but did they have issues or concerns with addiction to alcohol or anything? Or
No, I'm the only one. Um, I have older sisters. I don't know. I think maybe it's younger, and I think maybe it's male harder. I don't know.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, they don't really have addiction issues. They have mental health stuff, but they
yeah.
don't have addiction.
Throw
They're
the jab at the
crazy.
sisters.
They're
They
crazy
have mental
too.
health issues,
Yeah,
but
we're all a little bit crazy.
we're all, no, I think it's funny because when I have an identical twin brother,
Oh,
and
nice.
so he's great. Love the dude to death, right? But we're constantly being or there's a constant comparison always happening with us. And so when someone would when Queese would do something, and they would be like, "Oh, you do that too, I guess." I'm like, "No, no, no, that's just him." right? Like that's his issues. Okay, leave his issues with him. My issues are my own. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I always I always feel like I was taking a jab at him. Like no, he's the crazy one. I'm semi normal over here. Not the case, but I like to think I was more normal than he was, but it was not the case. I promise. We are more alike than I would like at the time than I to recognize. Um, but no, I was just curious because sometimes it can be a family, it can run in the family, and it concerns with that. So, and for a lot of people that can be scary, right? Because you mentioned your dad's dad being a Marine and being an alcoholic himself, and I'm sure for your dad there was a lot of fear of like becoming his dad in a way, uh,
Yeah.
and and I'll put it this way, I'll make it personal for myself. So I think that so me and I mentioned I have a twin brother, but we were adopted when we were officially adopted like 6 years old, um, uh, by an all white family, and so we grew up. Life was very different for us, and so we I didn't know who my birth parents were. I've talked to my birth mom. I've never met her, but I've never met my birth dad. And one of the biggest things for me was I didn't want to be like my birth parents because they had me and my brother at 15 years old. And so one of the scariest things for me in life was growing up and being and turning out just like them in that regards.
Yeah.
So a lot of my actions were based off of I don't want to end up like them. I don't want to put myself in a position like they did put themselves in a position. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I'm going to learn from that and I'm not going to do what they did. And so, a lot of times, and what I noticed, so with my dad who raised me was, there were some moments where I could tell he was trying to, he would do something, and my dad's great. I just want to point out, my dad's great. He would do something, get very angry, and then there'd be this moment where he'd be like, with a moment of realization of like, oh, okay, hold on, I don't want to be like my dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't have this realization that this was happening until I became a dad myself, and I realized there were certain things that my dad did that I didn't want to do. Right? I didn't want to imitate. I didn't want to mimic because I didn't want that those my kids to associate that thing with it as negative as in a negative light, growing up. So it scared me in a lot of ways. I was like, all right, I'm not going to do these things, um, which actually is one of the reasons why I stopped drinking.
Mm.
Because and I mentioned like I took my first sip at 21, but by the time I was 27, 28, I didn't know it, but I was addicted to alcohol. And like that's the crazy part is and that like where I can totally resonate with you there is I didn't know it, right? And like I didn't know, like you could show me a video or show me some we can, sit down and you can tell people to explain to me like this is what what an alcoholic looks like or this is how much they drink, whatever. I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, but like I don't, I don't do it that way. So I'm not like them. I'm not an alcoholic like them." Um, when I failed the drug test in the military, like I was telling you, I tell people all the time that was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me because that was at the cusp of me being uh uh like going full fledged alcoholic mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like turning into a full fledged like being able to function as like a
Yeah.
functioning alcoholic, right? Because I would similar to you, I would drink Friday, Saturday, Friday night, Saturday night. Sunday was my recoup day, and then Monday through Thursday essentially was my days to recoup, if you will. But if there was a federal holiday and I got some extra time off, well, you can trust and believe I'm going to drink that night as well. And I would get Jameson or I would get Jim Beam, and
Ugh.
I would finish. Oh, you said vodka, and I was like, oh no, 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 no,
You
no,
can
no.
smell it right now.
So quick tangent. So I went to Poland, and vodka is the thing over there. Let me tell you, after drinking with the Poles for some time, um, I will never drink vodka again. I'm good. Nope. I like I tell you, smelling vodka, it's literally it's I can have the smell is on my I can smell it right now and how it tastes. I don't like vodka. I'm like I don't like it. And I'm like, oh, I
I
can't
don't
even.
think many people do.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I don't even know. I don't understand. But like, there are people like, nah, it's good as vodka. I'm like, no, what is wrong with you? Don't you want to enjoy the drink?
Oh God.
Bourbon has always been my drink, yeah, I know and you're not gonna like this. Neat, bourbon
Oof.
neat. That has always been my. That has always been my.
Psychopath.
That has always been my drink. And
It's
it's
coming from a
funny.
pretty bad alcoholic.
What's funny is every time I tell someone that I'm like, yeah, bourbon neat. They're like, oh, okay. Are you okay? Yeah, man, I just like the taste. I don't know, now the first 2 years I didn't like the taste. I had to force myself and convince myself that I like it now. But then at that point I was like, oh yeah, I like it. So anyway, total tangent. But anyway, one night I remember I'm putting my girls to sleep. I'm putting my girls to bed. And I'm just it was a Tuesday night, and I'm just kind of like, I'm just gonna have two fingers and just kind of call it a night or whatever. Of course, that turned into like two drinks, but whatever. And I'm putting my girls to sleep, and I can smell the bourbon on my breath as I'm kissing them goodnight and praying in
Oh,
front of them. And I thought to myself, the thought came to me, and I said, you know what? I don't want my girls to remember or associate the smell of bourbon with, oh, that's what my dad would smell like when he put me to bed.
yeah,
That we're just hearing that in my head, hearing my oldest daughter, and say that in my head. I i i literally was like repulsive of myself. I was like, no, like I don't want my kids, I don't want that for my kids. And so I scaled back drastically, because and this is after I went to the forced. I was I had to go through the army's version or the military's version of AA, of getting sober and realizing, you have a problem and all that. And Very quickly I was like, okay, I'm here because I did Delta 8, but they don't know that I actually really need this alcohol part, because no one knows that I have this alcohol problem. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so that's why I tell people it's one of the greatest things that ever happened, because I was able to get saved from both alcohol and Delta 8. Now, I wasn't addicted to like drugs, Delta 8, or any other things, but it was really alcohol. That was what it was for me,
yeah.
because it was easily accessible. Um, and so, fast forward, I finish it. I'm not allowed to drink during, but afterwards, I get back to drinking, whatever. And I remember it was last year. Kid you not, last year in July timeframe. I remember I had my bourbon, and I said, okay, I said, I'm gonna finish that bottle, not like in one sitting, in one go, but like I was like, I said, when I finish that bottle, I'm done drinking. I said, I don't know how long for, but I'm done drinking. And I haven't taken a sip since.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been truthfully a big relief for me, because realizing how much of an impact and a hold that it had on me,
Yeah.
that my best friend's birthday party came up, and I went to Arizona to visit him, and he was like, "Hey man, let's have a drink with me." And I said, "Hey man, I don't drink anymore." I said, "But hey, look, I got this nice camera that you're seeing me through right here." But I say, "I got this nice camera. I'd love to take photos for you," And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then my birthday's in November, and so um, I'm you said it, I'm crazy. So usually my birthday present for myself is to run a half marathon.
Hmm.
And so I didn't do it last year because I had a lot going on. But he came out and visited, and he was like, I was like, "Hey man, look, let's get some cigars. I love smoking cigars." And he was like, "All right, we're gonna drink, right?" And I'm like, "No, no, I'm telling you, man, I don't drink anymore." And he was not upset, but he was like, "Hey, I don't understand. Like, what caused you to stop drinking?" And I was like, I just stopped. But what a lot of people didn't know is, I would get, so the Jim Beam, right? Like the whatever the regular size bottles of Jim Beam.
Mhm.
I would get one for Friday night. And in North Carolina, they're $12, right? So I get one for Friday night, and I would get one for Saturday night. And I would finish both of those, both bottles. Finish the bottle on Friday night, finish the bottle on Saturday night by myself, straight. Straight. Like, and I like, and telling you that now and and having a conversation with other people, the realization had set in that I'm like, oh, that's not a normal amount of consumption of alcohol
Yeah, that's a
that a
lot.
person is able to do. I, however,
That'll
thought was
work.
like, yeah, I was like, I thought I was like, nah, like that is just that's just you just got to get your tolerance up. I guess I just got a high tolerance, which I did. I
No,
don't know
isn't
what it
that
would
so
be now.
funny? Isn't that so
Yeah,
funny? I used to say that, oh, I just have a super high tolerance. No, it's because you drink all the time and you've built a tolerance because you're an
yeah,
alcoholic.
yeah,
I
and
was so proud of that.
oh man, I was proud of it. I would, you know,
It's tough.
talk yeah, talk to one of my best friends right now, man. She would tell you like I remember in the office, and she would tell me, she tells me now, she's like, I was concerned for you because she was like, you would sit there and you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm about to go drink a bottle of Jameson tonight. And it would be like it turned into you were like they understood of like, hey, oh, you're gonna drink a single bottle of Jameson Friday night, and then you're gonna have another bottle tomorrow night if you can make it through, and you'll probably make it through. I could start at 6, and I could be done by like 10. Yeah, like bro, I was just like, I was like, take it to the head. You know what I mean? I'm gone, and that's what it was for me. And that's what I would do. So like, I, it's crazy because the power that these things have, these substances have on us, and we don't realize it
Yeah.
until they do, until we're gripped by them,
Magnetic.
until yeah, until you start until you try to stop, until you tell yourself like, I don't need this, and then next thing you know, you're like, no, I need a drink. I
Yeah.
need it. I need. Gosh, I need something.
Yeah. I always say these substances have gravity to them, and the more you use them, the more powerful that gravity is. It's hard to get out of it.
Yeah, yeah. So did what I guess kind of what led to you though saying like, hey, I have to change, I have to get sober,
Oh,
because a
dude.
lot of people, because look, and you yourself, you've probably met people or experienced this, but like you'll get to a point where you're like, I don't have any value. I don't bring any value. Like I was in my own worst critic. I would tell people all the time, I suck. I was like, who cares about me? So like, why not? Like, it is what it is, So like, but what got you to be like, hey, like I have to make a change in my life. I can't just do this forever. Like I need to change.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna die. That's what it was. Like,
Wow. Well,
yeah,
that's a good reason.
yeah. I mean, I've struggled. I knew I had a problem probably 22, 23.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
my last relapse was a month ago. I've
Wow.
I've been trying to quit for 20 years, dude. Like
Yeah.
15 years, and I've had periods in between where I've been able to. And it's not like I'm just like a bottom, gutter drunk this whole time. I've always had a job. I've always been pretty functioning. But then I haven't. I've also lived in my car for 3.5 years, and like it's just these big ups and downs, and it's destroyed my life. And then spend 2 years getting it back, trying to get it, build it to a decent place, get a girlfriend, get my bills paid, get some of that relief. Now I deserve to drink, and like things are, I can handle it, and then
Hmm.
lose everything, back to the mental hospital, back to the gutter, back to living in your car, and then start over and just do that every 3 years, for, you know, I mean, you only get so many of those. You only
Yeah.
get so many. And you get a lot though. You get a lot of chances, man. I always like felt like I was too old and I felt like my life had passed me by and I lost everything and it's over, there's no coming back from this one. And I've always been able to come back and like, you know, I didn't know it then, but now it's like, oh man, this is just God. Like this is just God teaching me lessons. And like I just was never listening and I was never able to, I just could never stay sober. Like I could never stay sober, man. It was so hard. I could do it for a little bit, but I just had no tools to handle life. I had no God. I had no experience, and I was very poor me, man, poor me.
Yeah.
Look what they did to me. It's their fault. A
Yeah.
lot of resentment, and everything sucks, and it's always gonna suck. And my feelings are my reality. Like it's
Hmm.
like, no, your feelings aren't reality. And then
Yeah.
it wasn't, and I mean, every time I've learned something. Like I've lost the girl that I loved, and but I also learned a lot in that relationship, and I learned what love is, and I learned not to just, I learned to be. It's okay to be alone. It's not okay to be lonely.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you need to build yourself and go to the well where the people type of person you want is. You can't just go wherever you want to go, like go to the club and expect to meet this like person that's going to go to church with you. That want, like it's like I just was very lost, and I just didn't know what to do. Um, and then I don't know, AA helped a ton. Like I've gone to that a lot, and I've been to probably 1,000 meetings, and it's it's really good. Like if you actually do the steps, it's very healing. I got on medication that really helped me. I'm on Zoloft. I make videos on that. That's been a game changer for me.
That's awesome.
Um, I'm on testosterone replacement, and that's been very helpful. It's come with its own tricks, but
Yeah.
um, and then just like like my belly was starting to get distended. My kidneys would hurt. Like if I drank, I had to make sure I had the next day off because my kidneys are going to be hurting all day. Like I'm not going to
Oh
be able to get
wow.
out of bed. And then my belly would extend, and then it would slowly go down. It takes a few days for my kidneys to stop hurting, like at least a day.
Yeah.
And then like when that starts happening, you go, I have to quit. And then you tell yourself, I have to quit because I'm going to die. And you do that for like a year. like, it's like, dude. And then I go, like, it's not even, you're just so addicted, man. Like, you're just so messed up that you go, like, it. I know this is bad. And one of these days, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm not going to be able to come back. And yet I still do it. And I don't know why. And I could take a lie detector test that morning and tell you I'll never drink again. I would pass it. But it's like it just changes the way you think. And as you get the anxiety, and then you go, it really isn't that bad. And I deserve this. I've been working hard. There's always some way the devil will trick you into going back to that thing, whisper in your ear.
Well, I think it's funny because I was actually looking it up, and it just came to me. So the devil's goal is to deceive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think back to the book of Genesis, when the original first sin happened, right? And the devil is talking to Eve, and he's telling Eve, right? He's like, "Hey, what did God tell you to do?" Well, he said, "What did God tell you couldn't eat of this tree or eat or he could eat all these trees, or whatever, eat from the tree, or whatever?" She's like, "Yeah, he said we can't eat. We said we can, but we can't we can't eat from that one tree, for the tree of good and evil, knowledge of good and evil, because we would die." And he goes, "Well, no, you wouldn't die. He just does. You'd become like him." You know what I mean? And if you really think about it, what he said, right? When he said to her was, he just, he deceived her in the sense of like, they didn't die when they ate from the tree, right? They didn't die. God didn't come back and then and boom, killed them, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they did die. You know what I mean? Like they died. Their connection, their sin was introduced into the world, and their connection with God was severed, and now it
Yeah.
was separated by sin, right? But the devil deceived Eve into believing, like, oh no, you're going to be like God, and this is what the devil has been doing for ages, since the dawn of time. Is his goal is to deceive us into believing that we are inadequate, and when our sins and the things we've done in the past, it eats at us, right?
Yeah.
And it's always in the back of our mind of like, well, I'm this. I am my sin. I am the sins I've committed. I am these things. I'm defined by these things. And the devil will slip in and be like, yeah, you're right. You are. What? You're not worth it. Why not? What are you telling yourself that you're good. You're not your father. Well, that's a lie. Look, you yell at your kids like your dad did last week. So are you really not your father? You know what I mean? And these are the things that he does, steal, kill, and destroy. And this is one of the strongest messages that, when I'm reading in the Bible, is he will attack us relentlessly. It's not just a physical attack, it's a spiritual attack, and he's going to attack us relentlessly. And this is why we have to study the word every single day. This is why we have to pick up our cross every single day,
Yeah.
right? And it's hard because our flesh will tell us, no, 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 no. Hey, yeah, you picked up your cross yesterday, meaning you read your word yesterday, you prayed to God yesterday. Good. You're good for now. You know, come today though, you do a little bit what you want. You've earned it. No, no, no. No, we have not earned it. And it's one of those things, even I myself struggle in the sense of like, hey, I need to continuously seek God, seek the Lord in his face, seek him, and just to know, imprint his word on my heart, so I can, when I get into those moments and those times of I'm just like, I'm nothing, I can remember what he tells me. One of my favorite verses, Isaiah 26:3, keep those in perfect peace who trust in you.
Yeah.
Uh, and my wife wrote me that verse in a letter when I was in basic training, and it's stuck with me ever since. Ever since I have tattooed on my arm, Isaiah 26:3, keep those in perfect peace who trust in you. Right, like that is what how much like it meant to me. And basic training was its own elaborate thing, but like still, like that is one of those things where the devil will always try to attack our minds, we have to realize that our strength, it's not our strength, it's his strength. um and so that's just a words of encouragement, because I feel, yeah, I can hear it, and you hear your words, and I can hear, uh I felt that, right?
Yeah.
Like I told you, I haven't taken a drink since last July,
Nice.
and this is like mid to end of July, and late July. But like, still, I haven't taken a drink since. But one of the things that always comes up in my mind is like, hey, you didn't really have a problem. You were never actually
Yeah.
diagnosed as an alcoholic, and you were able to, minimize, simmer down, and like, drink, commit yourself. Say, I'm only gonna drink 2 fingers tonight, and you were able to do that, right? Like, so, like, you didn't have a problem. So, like, what's a drink, right? Like, what's a drink that right now? Like, you don't need, you're not an alcoholic. You're not one of those people who goes to AA meetings. You don't. It's all good. What's a drink, right? And that, like, it eats at me some days. There are some days it eats at me and I have to sit there and I'd be like, no, like I've committed myself to this, right? Like,
Yeah.
my wife asked me, how long are you gonna do it for? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but I could tell you, as of right now, I don't plan to drink for in the near future.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
still I still have those thoughts that I'm not. Isn't that
yeah,
crazy?
yeah.
If I'm
That
not,
is
who else?
insane.
Who is? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like, well, if
like,
you are, then who is?
oh
You know
yeah,
what I'm
oh yeah,
saying?
my life's in shambles.
But the
Yeah, man. Some of
craziest
the things.
thing. Go
What'd
ahead.
you say?
Sorry.
A lot of the stuff you said was really cool, man. You asked me like what changed. For me, I had one thing they say in AA is like you have a God-sized hole in you, like, and I
Yes.
did not know what that meant. And it's really only been this last 6 months. This is why I feel like this time is definitely like different, even though I've said that a million times. But this is the first time I've sought God. Like I never had any relationship with God for until 6 months ago, maybe, like I started praying and I started learning how to do that. I started just actually seeking like explanations and like looking up YouTube videos and looking up prayers, like YouTube video prayers. And it just slowly, man, it just slowly has been changing me. I would have never, dude, I was so science oriented and just like so dismissive of any religious talk. And, I was definitely curious about it. I liked philosophy. I like talking about like, wow, I wonder what happens when you die. And,
Yeah.
I did a massive mushroom trip where I feel like I talked to God, and that changed a lot. And then I also like, there's Pascal's wager, which is, you know, like, what are you risking? You're not risking anything to look into this. You're risking your internal soul and your happiness, because what if it's right? If you're wrong, you lose nothing. If you're right, you gain everything. Um,
100%.
and so I was like, oh yeah, I'm just being. I mean, you'd be a fool not to at least look into it and see if it helps after nothing else seems to have helped. I can't do this myself. I've tried a million times. I've failed every time. So that's what was like started me seeking, and it was just gradual learning, like little things of just like what this means, and what that means, and just little things that I had misrepresented. And like I was like, dude, like this Bible thing, like what Abraham was going to kill his son, but God said don't, so he
Yep,
didn't. Like
Isaac.
what?
Yep.
Yeah, and then you're like, I was always just like, that sounds like a pretty terrible God to play that joke, or just to like even put him in that situation. But then somebody explained to me, no, it's like what it means is like Abraham's faith was so strong, he knew that he wasn't going to do that, and God's faith is so strong in us that he just wanted to show how terrible this is, and yet him and his only son did get sacrificed. And that's how much he loves us, that he's willing to sacrifice his own son. And I was like, oh,
Well, another way to also think about this, and how someone had also, when I was having this conversation with them, was to think about is, um, the Old Testament and the New Testament. There's this crazy link, right? And um, if you think about it, right? So Abraham, God tells Abraham, hey, take your son over here, and he's going to be a sacrifice, right? Well, God did that to Jesus. God said, "Hey, God had Jesus. Jesus's purpose was to be the ultimate sacrifice. He was the final sin sacrifice, and he was a clean lamb, meaning had no sin. Right? Abraham's son Isaac, at that point, being young enough, right, considered to be righteous, having no sin of his own, right? He was going to be that sacrifice, right? So, like, you look at the correlation, it's crazy to think about, to see it. And when you see it that way, you're like, oh, okay, hold on. And then God tells him right before, he's like, hey, wait, hold on, right? No, don't do it. Right? Hey, you see the ram bull thing over there? You're going to use that as your sacrifice. How did that thing, and it just happened to be stuck, right? And it was stuck for them to go to use it as sacrifice. Craziest part also, right? At what point, obviously, Isaac asked Abraham, said, hey, Dad, where's the sacrifice? You know what I mean? And the Bible doesn't really say how that conversation went. It just kind of says, it just says, hey, oh, don't trust in the Lord, right? He'll provide us the sacrifice at the time. Like, at no point do you think Isaac was thinking, like, is it me? Like, am I crazy? He just told everybody else to say, like, me and him, or like, what's going on right now? Like, like, and so, like, the correlation, if it's just crazy when you think about it, right? And a lot of people are like, oh man, what a crude God, really, a
yeah,
God who
that's how
just
I
wants
used to
to,
think.
and you're like, hey, we are mere human. What us mere humans to think, to know that we know God and understand his ways, right?
Yeah,
And we barely even understand what we do on a daily basis. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, and so, I did have, I think a lot of new believers, they have these thoughts, they have these concerns of like, who's this God? This God, he just wants us, all these things, and what we could perceive to be evil, right? But then they're necessary, right? He has a plan, and I tell people all the time, it's his will, not our will. That is how we need to live our lives. We need to live our lives for his will, because once we live for his will, it's amazing how happy and peace and all those things that he promises to us happens and comes into full circle moment for us.
mm,
And I'm 30 years old. I don't know what 5-10 years is going to look like, from now, for me, but I'm excited. I get excited because I know I have the Lord, and I know that
yeah,
he will direct my steps, and I know that, you know yeah, there's going to be some trials that I'm going to go through, but these are moments in which I'll grow, and I can get closer to him,
yeah,
right? That's what Paul tells us. Use these moments as opportunities to grow in your faith, right? James says it too in James 1, 2 through 5. He talks about how, counted a great blessing or great joy, right? And is it James or Joshua? Hold on. I always got my Bible with me, so hold on. Um, I think it's James, not Joshua. Joshua's in the beginning. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
I got my Bible too. Big
There you
Book of
go.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah. So it's gonna be, it's James. It's James 1, verse 2 through 5. He says, Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Um, that verse lives with me. Those verses live with me continuously. I may not have them memorized, but I have them in my. I always think of it, right? Because it really helps me to know, like, okay, I'm going through something, but this is an opportunity to cry out to God and see Him
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, and also like I don't know if you listen to Jordan Peterson at all. He said something that really was cool for me, and is, like as much as I've been through, I'm actually pretty grateful for getting to experience the things I get experienced, because it's a path that nobody ever would choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get forced into it, like the experiences I've had. Like, so it's kind of a unique life, and there's a couple things, like something Jordan Peterson said, which was really cool for me, is like the more experiences you have, the more of you there is. There's literally more of you, like,
Mm-hmm.
because you've experienced more. There's more knowledge. You've gained experience. Like experience is king. As far as, well, I shouldn't say king, but it's like it's just so valuable, and it makes you such more of a person, and more to draw from, more knowledge. Um, and so having a lot of the experiences I've had in this particular area have made me very attuned with that area. And there's a lot of good that comes out of it. Like I could, like if I ever had a kid, I'm pretty confident I could make sure he never has a problem. And then
Yeah.
it brought me to God. I never would have gone to God. And I never would have, like, all these things I had in my head, like, why do bad things happen to good people? Why did kids die? Why did this happen? I never would have found an answer for that. And I did find an answer, which I don't, you could tell me for sure Christianity and God is not real. And I would probably still go to church and still act like it is, because what else are you going to do? There's nothing
Yeah.
else, you know, it's, even if it's not real, it's the best option to me. And then
Yeah.
somebody told me, like, think about it this way, like maybe we have eternal souls, and they get together with God before we're born, and we decide out of all the possible experiences we could have, that a human could possibly have, we pick a few to have and a few lessons to learn, and we get together with God and we go, okay, that's the life you're going to have. These are the lessons you're going to learn this time around. And then you're born and you forget what those are. And then you spend your whole life trying to learn those lessons and going through those experiences to know more of what humanity is.
Yeah.
And then you die, however you die, and you have all these tragedies, all these ups and downs, things that are unfair happen, things that are fair happen. And then you go back to God, and you feel what it was like to live that portion of humanity. And then you just repeat the process until you've lived every experience that God, His creation, could have for you. And then once you've done all that, you become an angel. And then you guide the newer souls and help them through. And whether that's true or not, I mean, it's not about truth. It's about what a cool way to frame how these questions, rather than God's bad because bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to
it
interrupt you.
just gives like some healing for when bad things happen. So now, like, when it's just kind of become this automatic thing where like bad thing will happen and I'll just be like, I guess that's just like the lesson. Obviously there's, depending on what it is, but it just made me a lot more resilient to bad things happening rather than becoming a victim.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
I think that's I think well I'll say I know this, right? I know and I believe in my heart that it's because of sin, and it's like that is that we say the word sin, and it's one of those things that we just look. Oh, a lot of people just kind of like it doesn't hold the weight that it used to, whether you were when you were younger or whatever the case might be. But now we say the word sin, and everyone's like, "All right, get it, Jesus, all right, Jesus for God, sin, all right, whatever the case might be, right?" Everything I do is wrong apparently, and it's like no, like it's like no, that's not the case. But you know, uh, you know, it's because of sin, and it's crazy the impact that sin has. I did a video yesterday, and I was talking about truthfully just kind of the lawlessness that this world, this nation is experiencing at this current moment, and it's because of we're a godless society. And I love it, what you said about what you learned in AA especially is because, and I forgot what I learned this from, but um I believe that every person, like you learned, right, has this hole in their heart, and that hole is we try to fill it with these things, with distractions. We try to fill it with substances. We try to fill it with sex. We try to fill it with by getting love from other people. We try to fill it with something, right? Ultimately, whether it's temporary filled, or what, or for a short time, whatever the case might be, it never feels like it's full. It never feels like it's complete. And I tell people all the time, I said that part of your heart is where God is meant to fill. When God fills the rest, it's amazing what happens in your life. Now, again, that does not mean your life is going to be perfect, right? And I love what you said, because experiences are a double-edged sword, right? Because on one side of the sword, you're like, okay, like I'm going to learn a lot of life lessons from here, and this is going to be great to learn these things once I get through it, right? But the other side of the sword is I got to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
so so you're like, man, like, ooh, do I want more experiences? Well, yes. How bad do I want more experiences? Well, I don't know, right? And I think of Paul, where Paul was in prison, right? And and he he was on fire for God, even though he was in prison, even though he was on house arrest, he was traveling, whatever, doing what he was going through, right? He was his last days, he was that's what his life was. But Paul found joy in being able to serve God, found joy in saying and being able to say, like, I count it a great joy. I can't remember the verse, but ultimately he counted great joy, right? Because he may not he's getting a glimpse of what Jesus experienced, and he'll count that a great joy. I can't remember the verse. I think it's in Romans. I'd have to look it up. But anyway, I think that's the powerful part of it for me, and right there, and that is just ultimately, at the end of it, where I would say we have to seek God. We have to seek Him, and it's easy to say, and it's harder to do. But when you start doing, when you create, when you, it's like starting a workout regimen, right? In the beginning, you're like, gosh, I really don't like this workout. Like these workouts suck, you know. But then after a month or so, you're like, okay, I'm looking forward to this deadlift that I'm about to get done. I was doing 315 last week. All right, I'm about to do 345 today, working my way up. Got my belt, got my straps. Okay, look, I'm feeling really good. You know what I mean? It's like a workout regimen. And after a while, it becomes a thing where you're just like, I need this. I
Yeah.
need to do this thing, or I know my day's gonna suck, or it's gonna feel like crappy, or I'm gonna feel like I'm missing something, right?
Yeah.
And when you get to that part, that's where the apostle Paul, that's where Paul was. That's where the disciples were. I would say, truthfully, later on, like Peter was. That's where they were like, oh, I know, I need this. I have to seek Him in order to know to make sure that I'm good, I'm secure, my life I can take those steps that are necessary in order to do what I need to do. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that was a perfect place for it. But final question before we go. you have a lot of knowledge, you have a lot of experience with all the things that you went through, right? And I think it's amazing that you're here talking to me and able to acknowledge, like, hey man, I had a relapse last month, right? And like, I think that's commendable to you. But for those people, who are in similar situations you're in, where they're the fear of that relapse again, right? The fear of, like, hey, it coming back. What advice would you give them? Because we can sit here and we can tell them, like, hey man, seek God, which I think is the essential part, the beginning and the essential part of it. But there's other aspects of it, right? So, but what would you tell them as a person who's experienced it and experiencing it? What would you tell them to do?
I mean, I think it's also a disease of loneliness. You know,
Mhm.
I think isolation is the worst thing you could do, and I think it's about building your snowball. That's kind of what I call it. Is uh, a lot of little negative choices start to snowball into a bad choices and bigger bad choices and worse things happening, especially if you're an addict. You've been down that road. If you're an addict, like, that those add up. But you can also build your snowball in the other direction. So, like, maybe you brush your teeth today, that's all you did. Well, you didn't brush your teeth yesterday. Maybe you took a shower today. Well, you didn't do that yesterday either. So start making those right choices. Like, you build self esteem through esteemable acts, So, and don't judge yourself, just start building, and it's all those little good choices that start to build into like a more solid life and going uphill rather than downhill. Join a gym and then get your first workout out of the way and then go for a run. You just start building those things. Um, Yeah, and then, reaching out. Like, I remember going to my first AA meeting, and I didn't know that other people thought how I thought, or like knew what I was thinking. Like, I thought I was the only one. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
know that this was thousands of people are going through the same thing. I had no idea. And I thought I was special. Like, I thought, no, you don't understand. It's just I have all these issues, and I get plus this, And it's like, dude, it's everybody's got stuff. You're not alone. So, like, reaching out to those meetings is really helpful. Getting out of that loneliness, joining church groups, seeking God. These are all things that are good for your soul, and those are things that'll help you battle the demons. You know,
Yeah.
demonic thoughts that want to take you away from that path.
No, I agree. You know, one of the things that sticks to me with what you just said is it's going to be Proverbs 27:17. Sorry, I'm a real big believer, so I'm
I like it.
always I always got something geared up, ready to go. But it's Proverbs 27:17, and it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. I think it's imperative, right? That you understand, you yourself and others, that you're not in this life alone, right? You don't have to be in this life alone. And it's finding others to surround yourself that help sharpen you. And man, it's amazing what happens, right? There, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fear behind it. It's scary to put yourself out there and hope and that people are going to receive you, right? But it's amazing what happens, because you'd be surprised that most people are in a similar situation where they just want to be accepted as well.
Yeah,
And next thing you know, you're in this group of people, you're with these people, and they're just like, okay, this is what it feels like to have someone
yeah.
iron sharpening iron, really helping me grow and keeping me accountable, helping me to know, like, hey man, you're not alone. If you need me at 2 o'clock in the morning, you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah,
right? Because sleep, I can get that, right?
yeah.
But I can't get you back. I can't get the you making a decision, and that ruins everything that you've worked so hard for.
Well, and
You know
like
what I mean?
giving somebody the opportunity to help them, it
Yeah.
makes you feel so good,
Yeah.
or it makes them feel so good. Like,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
feel when I'm helping other people and they're genuinely reaching out to me, I don't need to drink because I'm fulfilled.
Yes.
You know, giving it away is how you keep it. So yeah, if any of your listeners, I got a YouTube channel and an Instagram, so reach out.
Absolutely. Listen, guys, his stuff will be in the description below. I want y'all to know, um, go follow him first and foremost, right? Like, it's amazing that there are people out there. Like, there's these YouTube channels, these small channels that that people will overlook because they're like, oh, they don't have this amount of followers, they don't have these subscribers, whatever. And I'm telling you, um, you'd be really surprised about what someone else has to offer who's just starting out, who's growing, who wants to grow a following, not purely for monetary value, but for reasons, but for they have a genuine want to help others, and they have a message that people can receive and really soak in and be like, gosh, I'm similar to that guy, and he can understand, he understands, and that's what it is. You can understand, you can relate
Yeah.
to that, and that's what people want. So guys, go check it out. His stuff will be in the description below. I want y'all just to blow up his channel, like blow up his Instagram, blow up his X account, blow up his freaking YouTube channel. I want y'all to blow it up. I want y'all to just really just follow his channel, because I like to tell y'all, watch some of your short videos, right? I think it's awesome what you're doing. I think it's awesome. And again, it's to see to be experiencing this conversation with you, where I'm like, crap, this guy has a lot, like, you know what I mean, like, and like, it's something that it's something to not overlook, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't want so many people overlook it. I don't want people overlook it. So but anyway, all right, Michael, we're gonna go ahead and get off here, guys. That is all we got. Like I said, his stuff will be in the description, and of course, subscribe to the Mediocre Dads channel. It helps us a lot out, of course. And before we get off of here, guys, as usual, that being mediocre is a choice, and you have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. That is all I got. Mediocre Dad's out.
You're the man, Queon.
Appreciate you.